Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another review, and please set your GP base because Gundam Build Fighters is back. Kind of. And maybe in a way that most Build Fighters fans kind of wish that it wasn't. But yeah, anyway, this right here is the entry grade La Gundam from Gundam Build Metaverse. Now, say what you want about the quality of that 3-episode short series that is here on YouTube, this kit right here, the entry grade La Gundam, is ridiculously good, as you'd expect with that entry grade moniker. This is heavily based on the entry grade Oryx 78-2, so if I'm going to say anything straight away in this review, it's that the hips on that kit are very inclined to break. I'm not sure if this has carried over to this kit or not, but be very careful with the hips on the kit, just in case. So yeah, if you do want one of these of your own or for the upcoming Build Metaverse kits, some of which are ridiculously over the top, then you can get yours exactly where I got mine, and that is from HobbyLink Japan, and I will put that link down there in the description. But first, as usual, let's get this box busted open and get this thing built. So when it comes to the build of the entry grade La Gundam, this is, well, it does exactly what an entry grade does, and that is be impressive with a very small parts count, as well as not requiring any tools whatsoever. You can buy this kit without even a nipper and just pull it off the runners. You can just take the parts off just like so, like with some newer SD kits. Of course, if you do want this to look absolutely pristine, it is definitely worth having a nipper, or at least some kind of sanding board or file to clean up the nubs perfectly. But either way, even if you just pull it off the runners, it will look so good. This is an extremely simple build. Every part of this is just a couple of parts that have been intelligently designed. The feet are just 2 bits and a joint, the lower legs, again, 2 bits and kneecap, then the joint, and it kind of continues on just like that. Even though there is not that much in the actual build, what Bandai has done is incredible. They've become the absolute lords of plastic layering. The way that parts come from underneath is incredible, like the little V in the crotch is color separated like we would have seen on the Oryx 78-2, and like I mentioned, a lot of this kit is heavily based on the Oryx 78-2 entry grade kit, and the runner that we get in here called the D runner, that is the one that actually has the new parts of this kit, which is parts for up on the shoulders, the head, the backpack, the weapons, the knees, and just everything that you require to change this from a Oryx 78-2 into the La Gundam. And if you're wondering if you can actually build a Oryx 78-2 in the La Gundam colors, by the looks of things you can, but do not quote me on that one. We do have the leftover head, shoulders and waist unit parts, and the knees of that Oryx 78-2. But anyway, once it is built, it looks like this, and I did do one final step, which I always do with these kits, and that is I did panel line this. Now, I use these flow type panel liners, which I forgot, do not use. Use the pen type if you do want to panel line this up. The chemicals inside of these flow type panel liners are a little too rough for the plastic on these kits, which is a little more brittle than your standard high grade, master grade, or real grade gunpla. So go with the pens if you do want to line it up. Anyway, that's it to the build. You'll get this done in no time flat. It's extremely enjoyable, but let's check out what you get in the end. So jumping into the aesthetics, and what can I say, I am definitely impressed, which is usually the case when it comes to an entry grade kit. These are a very budget friendly, beginner friendly line of kits, but they always have great payoff. First off, I will mention this costs around 1,100 yen, which may be about 750 in euro, maybe similar-ish in dollars, so it is a little bit more expensive than the entry grade Gundam itself, but that does reflect the plastic that is inside of the box, because we do get a lot more in regard to weapons and extra armor. However, if you do consider that this is only about 200 yen, maybe a euro or two or dollar or two more than the high-grade Ariel, which is a vastly superior kit in every aspect, you kind of can keep that in mind when you're considering whether the value is right for you. But either way, this is an incredible kit and a nice take on the classic Oryx 78-2, and even though it didn't give me too much of a great impression in the anime itself, it seemed a little underwhelming when it comes to main Gundam designs. When actually cast in 1/44th scale plastic right here, this does look incredibly nice. For the most part, all of the detail and all the parts and the part separation is all what we would have seen with the Oryx 78-2, which does mean we do have some massive seam lines in the front of the legs, which really isn't the biggest deal breaker, but it is very noticeable at first glance. One thing I will mention that we didn't have with the RX-78-2 entry grade is that seam line up this side of the head. We had a full headpiece with the RX-78-2, which was very impressive, but this is more like a standard high-grade head. However, we do have that awesome implied black underneath the eyes, which isn't a sticker, it isn't black plastic, that is just shadow cast by the eyes itself, and that is model kit engineering at its finest. The color separation is amazing, like that V on the crotch, the white coming through from underneath on the shoulders, and the front skirtings, and overall it does look great. We'll mention the venting on the knees, the Vulcans on the head, and those little vent segments on the front skirtings. Those will definitely look a little bit on the plain side if you don't actually hit them with some kind of shading. Once again, I recommend using the felt tip Gundam markers. Lastly then, when it does come to the plastics, the color separation on here is ridiculously good. The black does have a little bit of that plastic folding in it on my version right here. It's not the worst, definitely not, and it is inclined to nub a little bit, but like I mentioned, that is as bad as the nubs get in this kit, so not too bad. Finally then, we do have a nice clear piece up on the head. This isn't your traditional Gundam clear piece. This is pretty much like the soft beam saber kind of clear effect because it is included on the runner with the top of the beam Naginata. So it does look a little bit on the kind of almost rubbery side, not the usual pop-in clear pieces we normally get. Overall, when you do consider the cost to the actual kit in question, this thing is ridiculously impressive. We'll also mention I did cut off these safety flags on the head, so those will have big square little bits on it if you don't file them off, which I always recommend to do. That's just so Bandai can pop 8+ in the box, so no kids start losing their eyeballs. Lastly then, the only thing that really does kind of hit me as a bit of a negative aspect with this kit is the head cameras do look kind of plain. The standard RX-78-2 did actually have a bit of red plastic in the head camera around front, so you could actually get a bit of color in there, but here it's just recessed white, which does look a little bit plain. You could hit that with a nice metallic Gundam marker, and that would definitely bring that out, but out of box, looks a little bit on the strange side. So next up, there's a full 360 spin right beside the actual art of the mobile suit in question, which is the La Gundam. So for the most part, this looks pretty much identical to what it's meant to look like. Of course, the V-fin, or if you could even call it a V-fin, it's got 4 like that, but that isn't as pointy as what we see in the art, and we are missing some yellow on the vents in the legs. Besides that though, it's pretty much color accurate for the most part. We could have some green up in the head camera, in the lens of the rifle as well, but considering that this is an entry grade, Bandai definitely nailed it. So jump now into the size comparison. Of course, this is standard RX-78-2 size because it is heavily based on the entry grade RX-78-2. There's another one just for comparison. This is a heavily stylized version, the high grade RX-78-2 Beyond Global. There it is side by side with the last main Gundam, which is the high grade Ariel, a Gundam with a whole lot more bulk, and some other Gundams at random. There's the high grade Gundam Barbatos, bye-bye, high grade Gundam Exia, and the high grade G-Self. So jumping into the accessories, and here's absolutely everything that comes inside of the box with the entry grade La Gundam. What we get is a pair of backpacks, so you have a choice between two. Then we've got the standard Gundam loadout, kind of modified, which is the beam rifle, the shield, and instead of 2 beam sabers, we've got the beam Naginata. So first up, when it does come to the hands in here, all we have is the standard set of block holding hands. So just in case you're not too familiar with gunpla, what that means is these are just these kind of fists with a big old hole in the middle. They really are just the kind of jack of all trades, master of none hands. They don't really do anything very well. They don't do standard poses very well, they don't do fists very well, and they hold on to stuff pretty okay. Around back, we do have the standard gunpla backpack attachment. We do have 2 backpacks in here, but first let's try out the compatibility by grabbing ye old high-grade Gundam Freedom back here. Most modern high grades and entry grades too have this standard 2-peg adapter segment, which does make them compatible across the line for absolutely simple custom combinations like what you're seeing right here. Like I mentioned, we do have 2 options inside the box. That is the standard RX-78-2 backpack with 2 beam sabers right here, like what you're seeing, but I will mention I am a little bit disappointed that there are no beams inside of this box, just like with the entry grade RX-78-2 itself. And the main reason I say that is because in the anime, it had red beams, not the usual pink ones. They were straight up red, so it would have been nice to see that done inside the box, but sadly, we don't have any. The other backpack we have in here is unique to this kit, and that is this one right here. This is all one piece. We have some thrusters on it and 2 little segments for attaching on both halves of the beam Naginata. These attach on using a little kind of tab section. They hold on good, hold on strong, and this is what it looks like. So when it comes to the actual weapons in here, first up we've got the Beam Saber. Once again, this is identical to the one that we would have seen in the entry grade RX-78-2, besides that little light, or should I say, sight section up top, which can go side to side, like so, and is missing the color inside the lens section. You do have the option of using the standard sight, as you can see here. By the way, those are painted. There is no actual parts to make the sights yellow or green, but that is an option to build them like that. And attaching it into the hand is super simple. You just slide it in like so. That's all there is to it. So the next piece of equipment we have in here is the shield. Now this I really like. The design is pretty much the old take on a Federation Gundam shield, but instead of the usual yellow kind of star symbol or whatever it is in grey, and that all comes from the grey round back. It is just 2 pieces. It's super simple, but just works out simple and perfectly. Attaching the shield on is super simple. It's just a peg into a hole, and that right there is what it looks like once it is attached. Now, because of the kind of essence of this, and that's, well, just a peg into a hole, and there is no forearm rotation on this, you're always stuck with it at this angle. So it does mean the articulation and whatnot, and the posing potential is a little bit on the limited side, but you will get most Gundam kind of guarding style poses. Looks good. So when not in use, there is really nowhere to put the beam rifle, so once you take it off, there is nowhere else for it to be, well, put. I guess it just throws it away. As for the shield though, you're actually able to pop this off and then attach it into the center of the backpack just like so, where it holds on perfectly. And speaking of the backpack and being stored on there, the beam naginata, that attaches on in 2 halves just like we saw before. Now let's check out what it's like in action. First off, removing this from the backpack would be a lot easier without the shield there, but I didn't want to take it off, so I just kind of wiggled it out past it. To assemble this, you just pop both ends together just like we'd see with the beam sabers on a lot of the Gundam seed kits. Up top then we've got the beam effect, which just shoves into the top just like so, and that's what it looks like put together. In order to attach it into the hand, just pop it in half again, slide it on through on either half like this, and then just reattach it back together. Now I thought because this came apart, it would be usable in 2 halves, like a pair of beam weapons or something like that, but no, it just seems to be a bit of a storage gimmick more than anything else. So once this is in the hand, it is really easy to pose. Even though it's a simple weapon, it works out quite well, especially with the entry grade design. So there it is in a bit of a single-handed pose, so if you want it just in one hand like it's getting ready to slash. But actually popping it into a 2-handed pose is the simplest 2-handed weapon I've ever worked with. I mean, seriously. Just take the other part of the handle, pop it into the other hand like so. The fact that these hands' backs don't pop off like some high grades means it holds on perfectly. The articulation is simple, but at the same time quite intuitive, so getting the arms lined up is so simple. Getting it into a pose is super simple, and it's not going to pop out. This works so well. I've had so much trouble with 2-handed weapons on 1/44th scale kits over the years. I'm definitely looking at you, high-grade Iron-Blooded Orphans line. I mean, this just works out so well. It's simple, effective, and does the job well, which really sums this kit up perfectly. So finally now onto the articulation and the build. The comment on the build is this is quite strong. The legs and knees are a little bit on the funky side, which is the normal case for the entry grade RX-78-2. Could be a little bit stronger there. It does fall over sometimes, but again, fairly cheapish kit, so not so bad. Overall, we have seen the RX-78-2 entry grade before, so I'm just gonna blitz on into the pose, and that's it. It does fall over a lot, and that side skirt falls off on me a lot too. So firing it into the usual pose I do to test out all the joints at once, and this does incredibly well. It's not going to blow your mind, but you will get the vast majority of decent poses out of it. Of course, the limitations here are mainly in the hips, where it's got that old school ball joint hip design, which means you can't get too much out to the sides or out to the front. They kind of always fight with each other a little bit, but otherwise quite good. The other thing is the front skirting armor, well, they just don't raise up past this point. I mean, that's it right there. They kind of go down like this and then up like so. They get blocked by the torso, which isn't the greatest. And the ball joints, you know, and well, not too bad. We do have some absolutely fantastic feet pivots though. So on the whole, pretty good. So anyway, that right there is it for the review. So with this kit, I am a little bit torn up. I'm pretty sure I gave the entry grade RX-78-2 Gundarium tier because it completely broke the mold when it came to gunpla. Such a cheap price, and so much kit and engineering for that price. But I feel this time around that isn't the case. Now I was thinking about giving it gold tier, but the problem with that is a lot has changed since back then. The high grade Ariel has come out, which is only 200 yen more than this, but I feel like that's a lot more of a kit and a lot more premium. Usually with a main Gundam release, you do get some kind of a little bit of a discount on the price, but I don't really feel that is here. especially considering it is 200 yen more than the early grade RX 78-2. So it's good, really good, gold tier. Overall, visually, this is absolutely fantastic. It does have some little down points like the visible seams on the legs and head, but then again, this is a very basic kit that's easy to put together, so it is meant to be beginner friendly, so it can't have too many parts. Can't complain too much about that, but what it does do, it does well, and it makes a kit that did look a little lackluster in the anime look really, really nice as a model kit. When it comes to the accessories in here, you can't really complain. The only thing it is really missing is some beams for the beam sabers, but Bandai does that a lot. Otherwise, we've got a lot in here. Beam rifle, beam naginata, a really nice shield, and 2 choices of backpack. You also have the leftover parts of the RX 78-2 if you want to play around with those, so definitely very, very nice. Finally then, when it does come to the articulation, be careful with the hips because this seems to be heavily based on the RX 78-2, which did have a lot of breakage issues in the hips. Overall, it is incredibly good considering how simple a kit it is, so overall I do feel like it is a great kit. If you enjoyed Gundam Metaverse, you really like the La Gundam, then I say 100% go for it. It's only around $7 or so there really isn't any complaints to be said. It's a lot of good kit for a very small price. Anyway, if you do want one of your own, there's a link down there in the description. As always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to come back for more gunpla reviews, and I will see you next time. As always, this video right here would not have been possible without each and every single one of you guys who watches my videos, and all of these awesome people right here who help out on the channel memberships and over on Patreon, including Tin Soldier YT, Abraxas, Caleb Engelhart, Dashel Marmion, Go Little Rockstar, Joe, Lauren Sehak, or G95061, Tin Soldier YT again, and Van Fawn.